So this is where we stopped last time, right? So we are trying to see like all these apps, domain services, and user has to be in the same security domain. So how do we solve this problem? So now you're going to have here an important concept which is called delegated authentication. This is one important term I want you to pay attention because it plays a vital role. It's a very, very important concept. And a lot of authentication that happens today is all based on this kind of dedicated authentications. So to give you a simple analogy, so today, if you log on to any web application, most of the time it gives you option: do you want to log in with Twitter, Facebook, or a lot of different apps which you have seen, right? So the application typically gives you access so that you don't have to remember your passwords for that web application. So if you have an account with Twitter or Facebook, you can use those credentials to safely authenticate with the application you're trying to log in, right? Just keep that in your mind so that we can revisit that later on, right? So what is this delegated authentication and why are we talking about it here? So the way the delegated authentication works is, again, let's take the same user and he's using a browser and then he's accessing an app. So in this kind of an architecture, the application says, "Hey John, I don't know who you are. You need to get logged in some other way, and then you have to give me some kind of credential so that I can allow you to access the resources that I'm providing it to you." Right? So that's what this app is telling. So the what app does is it redirects the user. So I'm going to take a different color, and then it's going by the browser, and then it redirects to a service called IMS, or Identity Management Service, which is going to do the heavy lifting for this web application. So right now, the user requested the app resources, and the app said, "I don't know who you are. Can you get authenticated using Identity Management Service?" So it gets redirected. Again, the key is it goes via the browser. And the Identity Management Service says, "Okay, you are a new user. I don't know who you are, and why don't you provide me your credentials?" So the um, the IMS, what it does is it it kind of prompts a form, and then it asks for the username and password, right? So it kind of displays this form to the user. So what John does is he types in the login name and password, and then it submits it back to the IMS. Like we saw in the past, the IMS has a directory service in the backend, and it's going to do all the logic and stuff and make sure that this is a valid login name and password and not someone's trying to impersonate this user John. And once all the validation are done, the IMS kind of sends the authentication details to this app, right? I mean, this is called like a response, auth response, for example. It'll have some kind of a cookie. Cookie is nothing but, think of right now, it's a simple a proof saying that this user is who he says he is, right? So that this is a valid user, so that the app knows. So once the cookie there, the app verifies that it's a valid credentials, and then it gives access to the application resources and things like that. So you don't have to worry about that. So whatever the application does, it's going to do it. So before we go there, how does the app trust this cookie or the the details that this identity management system is sending it, right? So for that to happen, there is an initial setup that is required. So the directory services or the identity management and the app need to be trusted so that That's part of the setup process. So this app and IMS, there'll be some kind of a setup process. They'll exchange certificates back and forth. So the app will send some certificates to IMS, IMS will send certificates to app, and they trust each other. So that way, whenever the cookie or some kind of authentication session details is sent to the application is able to verify because the application knows the keys, certain keys of this IMS, so it can validate the user, right? So that way, so this kind of architecture kind of solves a lot of problems which we discussed in the past. So for one thing, the application is not the login name password, right? Is not sent to the application, right? The application, all it's doing is redirecting, so it is always going to the IMS. So we are solving that problem, and then the user has to remember one user and password, which we know that, right? And that is the user enters only once. I mean the password, and we know for a fact that the creds or user details are stored in one place. That you're aware of that. And the last thing we've been talking about is MFA. And MFA can be easily done using this identity management service that can provide the service so that you don't have to change anything in the application. Again, that's an important concept. So you have a lot of flexibility by using this kind of an architecture, right? And the last important thing is the credentials are not passed to the application. The creds are not passed to the application. So you kind of see the picture here, right? So we started with certain problems, and then we kind of telling you how to solve this problem using this identity management solution. So we will pick up the concepts from here, and we'll talk about in detail, like how a SAML fits into all this. Again, SAML is based on this delegated authentication principles, which is what we're going to pick up in our next session. Okay. Until then, all have a great time and then see you soon.